Well, hello everybody. Well, the electrical is done. So I'm going to go ahead and try to show you what I did. Some of it's going to be hard to film, but I'll do my best. Alright, so we're underneath the dash, and this is the firewall. This is the area where the original Model A gas tank was. What I did is I cut out the original Model A gas tank earlier, and I left a little flange on the edge, and that enables me to bolt items to. So what I did is I used that, and I made this little mounting tray here. Bolted it to that lip, and then there was two nuts right here already in the firewall. I just used those to bolt the bottom to. That gave me a tray to mount everything to. I started off with a Speedway 12 circuit wiring harness, and that harness comes with two integral relays. One of them's a fan and one of them's a horn. I'm running an electric fuel pump on this car, and I'm not running an electric fan, so I used the fan relay to run my electric fuel pump, and from the ground to that relay I ran my ground through a inertia switch that I got off of a fuel injected Ford pickup at the junkyard. And what that inertia switch does is it's a safety device so that if the car senses like a quick jolt or something, like you get in a wreck, it will break the ground to the relay and the fuel pump will stop. That way, if you get in a wreck, there's no raw fuel pumping into a hot engine and you have to start a fire and so on. So anyway, that stops the fuel pump if you get in a wreck. And then from there, I ran it to a toggle switch. This enables me to turn off the fuel pump manually. If I want to do some maintenance on the car where I need the electric on, but I don't want the fuel pump on, I just switch this over to off. And then that cuts the fuel pump also. And then I'm running the original 39 Ford start button on this car. So what I did with that is I used the horn relay for that, and basically the same thing. I ran the ground wire from the relay, horn relay, up to the old ignition switch and column lock. I ran the ground through there, so you have to have the ignition switch up and on for the ground to work. And then I ran it over to my start button here. So you flip the ignition switch up and you hit the start button and the starter goes. Okay, so that's how I did that. I also mounted my voltage regulator for the generator inside. This is my speedometer cable, and these two are the water temperature gauges and the oil pressure gauge. I ran all of the wires in the older style fabric tubes, and once I get the kick panel upholstered and installed there, you really won't see it standing up next to the car, but those wires will be tucked in behind that. And then on this side I ran my speedometer cable, and again wires down to the start solenoid through the fabric, and then my panel will be here. So really when the panel's there, all you'll see is that little bit above there. And when you're looking, standing in the car, the dash covers all that, so you have to get down low like we are now. Alright, so I got my dash panel all wired in and done. I made that dash panel out of bubinga, or it's also called African rosewood. Little teak oil on it and several coats of lacquer, and it's good. You can see I bought new Stewart Warner wings gauges. I had to buy new ones because when we moved from Florida to Oregon, one of the guys that was helping me move obviously wanted them more than me. He stole my old gauges, my 1950s Stewart Warner gauges that I had in my closet, all rebuilt, that would have been perfect for this car. He knew the value of them, so he decided to steal them from me, along with some other items. But anyway, I hate dishonest people. So that's the gauge. Everything works. The dash lights work. Got my ignition switch, my light switch here. Everything works there. This is an old guide blinker assembly that I picked up at a swap meet. It's a guide 6004, and I went through, rebuilt this, wired it up, got my lights working. The blinker light works. To run two blinkers, the left and right blinker, into one light, I made up a little Y harness. I used two diodes into the one light, so either it'll flash either left or right blinker through the one light. You don't have to have two lights. Okay, we're up in front of the driver's side here. The two wires come out and then they split. One goes forward, one goes to the back. The forward one tucks in into the frame here and then comes out above the cross member where it splits again left and right. The left side comes out. I replaced the stainless steel covering that came with this with the old fabric cover, and then this runs up and does my blinkers and headlights, parking lights. And the other side's the same way, just runs on top of the cross member but underneath everything, out of the way, out of sight. Like I said, some of this stuff is hard to film. We're under the car along the driver's side frame rail. It's all the cloth covered wire is tucked in there. Breaks off to my brake switch, then runs back runs back to my electric fuel pump, and you can see the covered wires all tucked in underneath. Breaks off, goes to the fuel pump, continues back, and then the one right there running across, cloth covered, goes to the fuel tank sending unit. And then keeps running back, and it goes over that cross member, over the rear cross member. Okay, now we're under the rear of the car, and it comes from coming over the rear cross member along to the back here, branches off to the driver's side tail light, runs along that back seam there, and I have a wire hanging here when I get my license plate light. Runs over to the left tail light, or I'm sorry, the right tail light. And at the front of the car again on the driver's side for the generator wiring and the distributor wiring. Ran it up alongside, across the firewall, to the back of the engine, split across there, and then the wires come up to the generator and then the ground. And then on the other side here, the ignition wires come through this cloth covered sheeting up to the distributor, and then over to the coil here. Pretty clean setup. And there's the head and headlights, parking lights. Both blinkers work and everything. Let me show you what I did with my high and low beam switch. Okay, back under the dash again. Right there is my high and low beam switch. And to do high and low beams, all I have to do is reach under the dash and flip it with my fingers, and it changes high and low beams. It's out of sight, and good place to put it. And there's the tail lights. So that's the electrical part of the car. And that took me quite a while, but you know, it's worth it to not just slap wires and zip ties on there. So anyway guys, hope you enjoyed this video, and thanks for watching.